Okay, I got a recording in progress for some reason in the beginning. I don't know if you guys heard that as well. And
That
I
was
don't
the first
hopefully
time that was the first time
Yeah.
it's been
yeah.
recorded, and it made the
m-
message in my ears saying that
Z-
that meeting is being recorded.
Zoom probably had some useful updates. Okay, guys, hashtag get musked. That's what I'm calling this episode. Aaron, how's it going, man? My
Good
duo.
you, Mo. My
Doing good,
duo.
man.
I
I'm
love that
excited for this.
hashtag.
Dude, I
Get
honestly
Musk.
just thought of it this morning, 30 minutes before the episode even began. Now, today, guys, welcome to the Urban Platform. We got two amazing, talented individuals with us. We got Faris Anwar and we got Amal Malik.
Thank you for the introduction. My name is Ferris. I am a recent economics graduate from Concordia. I'm going into investment banking, working on my CFA for the summer, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Amal, go ahead.
Hi, so my name is Elon Musk and I go to UCL in London. I currently study comparative literature, but I'm thinking about getting into law.
Into some recent events here. We are living in 2021 where everything's online. And if you don't know the name Elon Musk, chances are you're living out with Patrick Star under a rock. Elon is notorious for blowing up Twitter. What else? For hosting SNL, or maybe because he blew up Twitter, he hosted SNL. For being the guy who co-founded Tesla and a bunch of other companies, whether you look at Hyperloop or Solar City or SpaceX, that's Elon Musk. So we are going to be talking about his recent decision, and by recent, I mean recent as in, I believe it was last week. No, 2 weeks ago, May 13th.
Almost 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So Elon Musk made a post on Twitter, which disrupted the stock market as it normally does. So he posted that that Tesla will no longer be using Bitcoin for transactions because of environmentally conscious decisions. So we're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be going into a bit more about Bitcoin, because not everybody knows what Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is. And yeah, that sums up what we're going to be talking about today.
Awesome. And I had a few questions myself, which I'll save for later. Ferris, do you want to start by giving some of your points and your opinions on this whole issue?
Sure. So Elon Musk saying that he will no longer be accepting Bitcoin really did not come as a surprise to me. It was something I thought was bound to happen when he first introduced and said that they will be accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment. That was what surprised me, really. Elon Musk, as you said, he's a huge social figure, and anyone who doesn't know who he is really just living under a rock. But to me, it was a concern when he said he would start accepting payments for this. But the real question to me was this one tweet managed to completely collapse the stock market. I don't want to say collapse, but it sent the stock market upside down. And that raises the real question: is the effects of social media and the effects of celebrities endorsing certain cryptocurrencies and certain stocks. What effect does that have on a larger market? And how does that affect both retail traders and investment bankers? On the point of cryptocurrency in specific, I feel like Emma's got some very good points here. So I'll hand it over to her.
Yeah, so I mean, Faris, like I'm completely with you in the sense that it's kind of bewildering that he seems like such an omnipotent figure, because as soon as Musk tweets, like the value of something literally quintuples, or you have something that just absolutely devalues to the point where it isn't a viable investment for you anymore. And the thing is, you have so many younger people that are getting more and more into crypto. And you also have a lot of trading platforms that kind of gamify the whole situation. So I think that's one of my key criticisms about just, I think, this sort of like oversimplification and easy access to it. Like, it's wonderful that more people are putting more money into it, but I think that some people are just kind of going about it really haphazardly without having researched it or understanding the mechanisms behind it. So I think that's one thing to kind of be aware of when it comes to crypto, and to not just kind of like don't go for the clickbait. Don't fall for everything that everyone says on Twitter. Like that's like probably my biggest piece of advice to someone. I actually work part-time at a cryptocurrency exchange platform, so I've kind of had to do like a fair amount of research into it. So I had to be like personally, I'm a very conscientious investor, and I think that you just have to kind of really convince yourself that the technology is something you can trust. You have to kind of convince yourself that you're capable of putting up with the fluctuations. Because sometimes for people looking to make a quick buck, you never know when Elon Musk or when a really, really significant figure is going to drop news like that and then just completely tank your quick buck. So I think that if you are also willing to invest into Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple's XRP, or any number of cryptocurrencies, even Dogecoin, if that floats your boat, like make sure that you're willing to ride the wave and make sure that you're ready to face that, you know, this is like a hot potato situation. And as soon as I think when you have like figures like Musk, who is probably one of the most like under scrutiny kind of figures in the financial world, like be prepared to deal with the fluctuations.
Okay.
On that, I guess I have a question. We mentioned Elon Musk as one disruptor of cryptocurrencies more generally, but is there anybody else that you could think of that people should like not watch out for, but people should keep in mind when they're working or investing in crypto?
So me personally, like I know that I've kind of like I don't really use Twitter a lot, but there's this one figure that pops up a lot in Pakistan. His name is Waqar Zakka, and he basically has like this Facebook group where he has like millions of people who he gives crypto advice to, basically when it comes to crypto trading or like which currencies to invest into. He's one figure that I can think of in Pakistan, but I think it's just that Musk has so much influence. Like I don't think you can really pick someone that rivals Elon Musk. You had Warren Buffett, who was a major dissenter of Bitcoin because he's for the traditional banking system. So I think, but I mean, it's not as if Buffett just kind of like impulsively hops on Twitter and then says, okay, I'm going to back Dogecoin, and then Dogecoin like goes. Like that never really happens. But I think that it's also like maybe it's like a generational sort of situation, right? Because Musk is relatively young compared to some of like, you know, the Nasdaq whale, or compared to like who also invested like billions into Bitcoin at one point. And Warren Buffett himself, like you don't really see that kind of like, I don't want to use the word childish, but like there's like something really impulsive about the way Elon Musk like tweets, and it's also very like it's very like millennial sort of Gen Z friendly kind of jargon that he uses in his tweets. Like he's a very, very enigmatic, interesting kind of figure. So I don't think you can really compare Musk to anyone else, but there are definitely more influential figures out there in the crypto world.
Okay. One question to you guys. Do you think Trump had any impact in the past, at least, when he was a president and when he would basically manipulate the stock market big time on a daily basis, especially during COVID, where the market itself was unregulated? It was hectic, and I think you guys remember a lot of incidents that did occur throughout this past year. So do you think Donald Trump is somebody who can compare, or do you think he has no relation once it comes to crypto?
Personally, sorry, go ahead.
I think as Emma said earlier, you know, there are prominent figures who will go to Twitter and give advice, but nobody will rival Elon Musk. Donald Trump was just ridiculous during his presidency. I feel like at a certain point, he went to Twitter like a 5-year-old child, just trying to complain. And I don't think while he did have massive effects on the market, I don't think a tweet from him versus a tweet from Elon Musk would have the same ramifications on the market. With Elon Musk, he has a massive following, and I'm hesitant to call it a cult, but anyone who follows Elon Musk will follow him to the death of it and will completely listen to whatever he says, versus Donald Trump has that background, but I don't think people will be as ready to jump on a trend when Donald Trump tweets versus if Elon Musk does.
Definitely. And you know what was funny, because we're all aware that Elon is a global figure and has a worldwide impact with whatever statements he makes regarding Tesla, SpaceX, and any future initiatives he has in mind. Now, you know what was funny? If you guys noticed in that very incident when he tweeted that tweet out against Bitcoin, another prominent figure did respond, and this was Mark Cuban. And he was just basically justifying cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in general, saying that this can be used as a currency towards buying um, Dallas Mavericks games, right? Purchasing towards tickets and any other accessories related to his specific team. And do you think that there was another intention behind that tweet to sort of help regulate the market again, to essentially try and stabilize whatever damage Elon could have created with that one tweet? Do you think there was another intention behind it? Because I don't think it had much of an effect for obvious reasons, just from what we saw. And a lot of people disregarded Mark Cuban's response just by saying that nobody cares about your organization, nobody cares about using Bitcoin or any other form of cryptocurrency for your merchandise, anything relating to Dallas Mavericks. But do you think there was do you think there was another intention behind it?
I'll go.
Go ahead.
One thing is, I know that in the NFL, people are accepting currency as Bitcoin. So Sean Culkin is one of the NFL players who does receive Bitcoin as salary. And considering how Cuban owns the Mavericks and I believe the Cowboys, not the Cowboys, no. I believe that but like he does own a significant amount of teams in the Dallas area. I think he's doing it because he knows that one day players will come up to him and go, "Hey, can I be paid in Bitcoin?" So I think he's like covering his grounds because one day it might be the deciding factor between like a LeBron James coming to Dallas when it's just an option for him to be able to pay his employees.
Oof, okay.
But that's just my take, being somebody who somewhat follows sports.
And look, like, let's just clear one thing in the air that, look, Elon is too smart to realize that he's not part of market manipulation. He knows he's doing it. Okay. And the amount of impact he's had against people who invested in any cryptocurrency, I feel bad for those people. And this is why I personally stayed away from crypto, just because of how unstable the market truly is with all these influential figures in the back. You could either like go ahead and join the ride, take the risk by all means, but a lot of people did get hurt on a personal level with this. And what do you guys think about Elon's attitude towards this? Do you think he should hold accountability? Because I think it would have been much different if Tesla released a statement themselves, and I'm sure they did, without Elon actually tweeting it out. Do you guys think that just Tesla itself releasing a statement, an official statement, would have I think it would have personally have had damage on the market itself? But if Elon refrained from doing it, do you think it would have caused that much damage? Because I think just Elon himself was a sole factor why this instability has occurred.
So I'll chime in. So with respect to Tesla kind of putting out a corporate statement, maybe it would have seemed, I don't know. The thing is, when you have a celebrity figure, I think we all understand that influencer culture is kind of taking over the world, and Musk is definitely someone who's entangled in this like limelight, like out of it, and in like various headlines for more reasons than just his business acumen, quite frankly. I think that even if it had still been Tesla, a fair amount of damage definitely would have been done, because a lot of people became immensely rich because of Tesla, and because Tesla is one of those like sort of like blue chip stocks, right? You have like people swear by Tesla, people live by Tesla, people owe a lot of their fortunes to Tesla. Like it's something that if it's in your portfolio, it's something you would never let go of. So I still do think that the damage would have been immense, but it's surely the impact of Elon Musk's celebrity that exacerbated it by, let's say, tenfolds. If Tesla itself was going to do damage, Elon Musk still would have done a lot more damage, just because he's such a strange, like multi-hyphenate kind of character that's so like heavily scrutinized.
Yeah, and Aaron, now this is where I want to transition to you, because you did quite a bit of research on this and you have some interesting facts that I think the audience would like to know about how basically Bitcoin mining goes and any sort of mining related to cryptocurrency. So tell us about these facts and give us some specifics.
Yeah, so one thing I do want to specify though, before we get into that, is I just want to get into depth about what the fall was on the 13th of May, because we keep talking about the fall and how it went down, but I just want to put that into numbers. So on May 13th, it fell 15% to below 40 cents. I'm not a numbers guy, so I can't tell you what that means, but that's what the number says. If anybody wants to build on that, they could do that after.
Please go ahead.
But in terms of Bitcoin, I found out today doing research, there's a limit to how much could be mined. I didn't realize there was a magic number, and it's 21 million. So currently we've mined about 88% of the world's Bitcoin reserve. We're at 18.5 million Bitcoin. And when you invest it, or when you're mining Bitcoin, at first it was very easy, but with more and more time, it becomes more and more computationally processing. And it's harder to mine at this point than it was, say, 5 years ago, because you need more resources. And this is where it becomes an energy problem, because often companies are going to resort to countries and areas with the cheapest energy production, and it may lead to environmentally unsustainable options.
Well said. And just to transition over, I think this is the part where if you guys want to make any other statements or comments or want to raise any more questions regarding this whole issue, please go ahead and take the stage. So Faris, Amal, you guys have anything you guys want to say? Or you want people to know at least?
Just a kind of tip for the environmentally conscientious. So one thing is that you guys have to, so like when it comes to mining, right, there are certain hotspots for mining that like Cambridge University has kind of pinpointed. So the Sichuan and Xinjiang, like I probably mispronounced that and I'm super sorry, provinces in China,
It's all good.
they this huge surplus of hydroelectric energy. And most crypto miners in that region tend to benefit off of that surplus. That's just to kind of ease some of the environmentally conscientious, but obviously not all crypto is mined from China. And the other thing is that like it does take an obscene amount of power, especially like I think crypto, like Bitcoin itself is probably one of the most energy consuming cryptocurrencies. If you were to invest in, let's say, Ripple's XRP, or if you were to invest into Ethereum, those would probably be better options for those that are very environmentally conscientious. But I mean, we still can't really deny the fact that Bitcoin really is at the forefront of the crypto movement, and it's obviously the highest valued cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a tip for anyone that is really concerned about the environment.
Yeah, and on that, for the energy production, it's 17 megajoules of energy per dollar of Bitcoin, which is more than double the amount of energy that it's required to mine a dollar of copper, gold, and platinum, or like the standard currencies that we're used to. So this is a crazy amount of energy. And another point on that, like the carbon footprint of Bitcoin. I found this map today, and I was reading it, and I presented it to Mo, and he was a little baffled by it too. A single transaction of Bitcoin, and the article is below in the chat if you want to fact check me, but this is coming from, I believe it's The Guardian. Yeah, it's an article by The Guardian. A single transaction of Bitcoin has the same carbon footprint as 680,000 Visa transactions, or 51,210 hours of watching YouTube. If you do the math, this is 2,133 days. If you were to watch YouTube for 24 hours a day, this would take 5 years. So that's only one transaction of Bitcoin, and that's how much damage is done to the environment from that. So that I found that really interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, Amal.
So sorry.
No
I'm a devil's advocate. There are a few companies like Intel is coming up with some technology that is meant to be more efficient energy-wise, but as of now, the carbon footprint is really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And Amal, do you think you could give us some more detail about how they're planning to counter these environmental effects? Or that's a bit too specific?
So yeah, I'm not like, I don't really have any details about like the niche kind of like specificity behind like the computer, like the computation processes and like what they're going to do, but it's just essentially they are going to change up the hardware. But apart from that, I don't have a ton of information because I don't think Intel has published a lot about this, but this is just kind of conjecture that I've been reading about online.
And yeah, I could add on that because I know that originally Bitcoin was like highly advocated because you could actually use and utilize parts of the computer that you don't necessarily use on a regular basis. So a lot of people saw this as a huge plus because you could either reuse like old computers to mine Bitcoin or like old laptops that weren't running properly. You could use it to mine Bitcoin as long as it was running in the background. And I know it's not only Bitcoin that you could use these old computers for. Like one of the international astronomy organizations was actually asking for people to use their computers to run star cluster analysis and to analyze where stars are located in the galaxy. So I guess that's not environmentally unconscious because you're reusing the computer parts, and maybe that's something that Intel was doing, and it was a matter of recycling the parts that they use.
Mm-hmm.
Well said. Okay, Ferris, go ahead.
On the point of somewhat playing devil's advocate, I'd like to bring up a new point that was brought up in the article as well.
Yeah.
And I want to hear everyone's opinion on this. Is while we cannot deny that the effect on the environment is substantial at the moment, the article brings up a good point of, do you think this is worth it overall? Taking that forward step, and will cryptocurrencies change the entire banking system? And with any new revolution, it is taxing, but overall 10 years, 15, 20 years down the line, when companies such as Intel and every larger electronic corporations move more towards finding a way to make this more environmentally friendly, will it be worth the effects of the environment right now, 20 years, 30 years down the line? General question for whoever would like to hop in here.
Yeah, so I'm happy to chime in. The thing is now, first, that's a really interesting point to raise. And I think that, you do have really firm believers and some really dogmatic believers that will say that definitely it is absolutely worth it because, people cherish the fact that Bitcoin is anonymous. People cherish the fact that it's a borderless kind of platform. And people also do think that the conventional infrastructure that it takes to run the whole fiat system, like, having these big banks, having ATMs, having so many other kind of like so many other tangible structures that are potentially environmentally worse cumulatively. I think that's something that, people that are for Bitcoin would definitely argue for. But slightly deviating away from the whole environmental issue, although it is really important to evaluate, like, I think that there's still a few illicit uses of Bitcoin that do worry me as a user of Bitcoin and as an investor. Because it's anonymous, you have to bear in mind that a lot of people have kind of resorted to using it, like promoting black market activity because, the ledger doesn't really like point fingers at anyone. So that's kind of been something that I've been really concerned about, because also when institutions are hacked, you've noticed that like people demand ransoms in Bitcoin. Like there have been quite a few scandals around with like gas companies, etc. So yeah, that's deviating, but maybe someone else would like to chime in about how they feel about that stuff.
Aaron, do you want to chime in? Do you want to answer Ferris's question
Sure.
before I go?
And I kind of agree with that. Like, I do agree that Bitcoin is environmentally unconscious, but that's not the point. It is a point, but I think one of the things is that with Bitcoin being anonymous, you don't really know who to hold accountable. You don't really know who's to blame. And like when there are fluctuations, most of the time it's associated with Elon, but you can't necessarily predict it. It's not necessarily stable over time. And as an investor, it begs me to ask, like, okay, you could have high returns like immediately or in a short period of time, but in the long term, is this something stable? It's only been around 10 years. Yeah, 10 years, 12, 11 years. I think Bitcoin was first invented in 2009. Compared to more traditional structures like the stock market, which has been around for at least 100 years, I'm just questioning, is this going to last the test of time?
Ooh, okay, so you know what's interesting, and this is one thing that I'll add into the mix here. We've spoken a lot. If you notice, between the four of us, we've emphasized we've emphasized the fact that this has a negative environmental impact. And you know what's funny? Because the article and people in general focus on the more market manipulation side of things, more of Elon's influence and influencers in general, right? And then that starts raising the question that should I even invest in cryptocurrency if there is so much instability in the market, right? I think people's first question will be, how can we offer more stability? Can we add some regulations? Can there be an agreement that's signed once you actually invest in a cryptocurrency? But you can still go, in my head, like I just figured out a way how you can go against that as well. So, just like the stock market, there's not really much regulation in terms of how to calm influencers and their opinions. You can't restrict their opinions because then that's going to bring up other issues that we're all aware of. So I think it's something that's I think it's just something that'll just remain in place. This problem will just remain in place. And unless you guys can think of some policies that can actually control what an influencer may say or may not say regarding Bitcoin or regarding the stock market. But throughout history, even with the stock market, we couldn't have controlled that, right? People have done stock market manipulation for the longest time. And Amal, you probably know about this, but do you know about the whole scam that occurred in India in 1992, for example?
No, sorry, which one?
So this was basically um, a huge investor in the market named Harshad Mehta. Amazing documentary. I recommend all of you guys to watch it. And he's a sole example of and people often blame, and the reason I'm bringing up this point is because people often blame technology, social media for all this, all the market instability and the manipulation. Yes, I agree, technology can make it easier and spread word faster, but it still existed even before Twitter existed, before any social media platforms existed, through newspapers, through marketing strategies throughout the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that I don't think we can ever escape. That's basically my point. And it's funny how people are focused on that issue as opposed to the environmental argument that goes with it. So, yep.
And Mo, you mentioned terms and agreements, like people should agree and consent to when they buy Bitcoin.
Just
look,
an
like
idea,
we agree to our terms and conditions on Google, yet people are complaining about their privacy on there. So like having that, like, let's be real, nobody's gonna read it, even if you're investing in Bitcoin or Dogecoin. Nobody's gonna read it, right?
But so along the lines I was thinking, right? Let's say you had to sign a terms and conditions agreement before purchasing.
I agree to lose money.
No, I agree to not state any opinions or anything that can cause mishap in the market, whatever, right? But at the same time, what if you sell off your shares or sell off your cryptocurrency and then you make a statement and then you go, do you know what I mean? You can play around with that rule as well. So I don't think there can be any policy unless you really want to restrict people's rights and freedoms at this point for the market, but that's impossible just given our history.
If you were to restrict it, okay, I'm gonna think of Elon Musk and Clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
When Elon Musk announced that he used Clubhouse went up in popularity, right? If you don't have these influencers preaching their service or preaching the platform that they're using, very few people will actually get to use that platform.
I think platforms are fine, once you're tweeting out platforms and you're tweeting out useful tools and services, right? That's totally fine. But then when you're costing people their livelihood by taking away their current holdings on the stock market or cryptocurrency, I think that's where the problem actually occurs, right? You can drive prices down, you can drive them up, and dude, there's no such thing as financial analyzing at this point. It's it can't be predicted, right? Just this, yep, it just hinders predictability at this point. So I don't know, it's hard. It's hard. It's something you'd actually have to sit down and think about.
Yeah, just to chime in, I think with respect to what you talked about, like, we're also in the digital age. So obviously volume is immense and like speed is immense as well. And obviously because you have so many platforms that have, just to reiterate, sort of the gamification process behind it, like, you have Robinhood and you have so many young investors that are finding these other alternative online platforms to get involved. I mean, I think the first onus that we have to put on people is, us as the consumers. Like, we have to be aware of the fact that, we do live in a day and age where influencers do have this much power and they do have this much speed and they do have this much volume. So we need to be more conscientious about where we invest. I think people that like solely just hop into the game just because Elon Musk first endorsed it should have been a bit more. I mean, I'm not trying to sort of like chastise.
Hey, go ahead and roast them. Go ahead and roast them. This is the platform. Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, I just think that, look, at the end of the day, you have to have faith in what you're investing in, and you have to be aware of the fact that there is a risk. It wouldn't necessarily have been a great idea to put like your entire livelihood into something just because Elon Musk tweeted about it, because the guy is really erratic about tweets, and he does have a somewhat childish quality about him that should be evident in the kind of like vernacular that he uses. So I think that first and foremost, we should all put the onuses on ourselves. And yeah, I mean, as like you said, Mo, there are too many issues when it comes to restricting influencer freedom and restricting how they disseminate their opinions about things, because some people want Elon Musk's opinion about XYZ. So yeah, I mean, obviously it would be nice if he was more conscientious about it, but he's being very deliberate and strategic about what he's doing over here. This is a pump and dump scheme, quite frankly. So yeah.
I think that raises a bigger issue of, I know you mentioned that, there are platforms such as Robinhood now that somewhat gamify investing, and that raises a bigger issue of, we've seen a massive rise in just regular retail investors, everyday people downloading these apps. And while 100% I'm all for this, what a lot of people don't realize is what they're getting into. I'm on, multiple Discord servers, and people will, as Mo said, they will put their life savings into this. They'll just try to follow the trends and end up losing everything. And it breaks my heart as someone who, who's been doing this for quite a while. I used to paper trade for years before I put any real money into this. And so to see people just jumping on trends and the ease of accessing the stock market right now, whether it's stocks or cryptocurrency, I think that's become somewhat of a problem, is everyone's just jumping on these pump and dump schemes. If you're lucky, you know what, a lot of people, I know you mentioned earlier, a lot of people made money off of Tesla this year, but those who held past the dump, they lost, and they lost a lot. And I think what companies such as Robinhood, I know we keep using that as the example, but there's plenty of others, whether it's Wealthsimple, ShakePay, Binance, there's so many of these. The ease of people in getting into the market now is the real risk to me. People just jump in, they're not too sure, and they're following all of these trends. So it begs the question, can we hold these platforms somewhat accountable? There was earlier, I believe in, say, late June last year, there was a scandal with Robinhood where a system error had occurred on someone who was trading options on Robinhood's platform, and he woke up to see, I think it was negative $250,000. It was a system error, and he killed himself.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Woke up. I think you guys remember this. It was horrifying, and again, I'm like, God rest his soul, I'm not trying to attack him or anything like that, but it begs the real question of, people don't really know what they're doing when they're jumping on these, and especially when he was trading options. Options is not an easy thing to get into, and so it begs the question, should these apps be regulated? Should we limit how many just regular retail investors can jump into the market? And what's everyone's opinion on the uses of these apps? And
what's go ahead, Aaron. Yeah, please.
I think one thing is that with the internet, there's so much information out there that one thing is we don't know what to believe or what to trust anymore, and we kind of just go like, yeah, we could invest because wealth simple makes it easy. I don't know if that's their slogan, but it sounds accurate.
I hate wealth simple.
But
anyways.
That being said, look, I think we regulate everything, whether it be resources. Like I keep going back to natural resources because it's something that I'm familiar with. Like natural resources are heavily regulated, right? Like one company has a monopoly or several companies have monopolies, but you know exactly who's in charge of oil in Canada. With things like cryptocurrency, I don't necessarily see this being the thing. There seems to be no real regulation behind it, and I think it needs to be limited. You can't just have anybody digging an oil well because you need permits from the government to get this. But from cryptocurrency, I could do it on my own computer if I want. That doesn't seem very regulated. I mean, I could dig an oil well, but realistically, I'm not getting enough oil to produce more than what could heat I'm not producing a lot if I were to do it on my own. I think there needs to be some kind of regulation or some kind of limit, because at one point, 6.5 billion or 7 billion people using cryptocurrency. I don't know how structurally safe that is.
Yeah, so just to chime in and kind of go off of what you were saying, Aaron. So I personally, as a consumer, as a user of Bitcoin, I am for more regulations, but for most people that does defeat the purpose of Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin's like relishes in the fact that it's produced this anonymous kind of network for people to do what they're doing, to make their purchases that way without having like state scrutiny, et cetera, and without having, all their data being fed into all these other institutions. I think that is one of Bitcoin's key selling points. And unfortunately, it has led to that kind of illicit, kind of dark web activity that I kind of mentioned earlier. Because I mean, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, maybe if it's a problem on your campus as well. But I know that there are people around UCL who use the dark web to essentially get drugs for cheaper, and then they end up paying for it in Bitcoin. There's tons of black money in Bitcoin, and that makes me really nervous about just using it in general. And so, yeah, as much as regulation would be great, it's just that there's a huge, overwhelming percentage of people that capitalize on the anonymity factor. So you have to really tread carefully when you discuss regulations, otherwise you could lose so much of your market. Would that be a bad thing if you're curbing illicit activity? Absolutely not. But would it wouldn't necessarily benefit the people that, perhaps need anonymity for other purposes, which aren't as insidious, I guess.
And this past year, right, 2020 at least, everyone suddenly became an investor. Everyone talks about the stock market. It's just casual conversation at this point. It's icebreakers right now. Yo, did you invest in any crypto? Did you invest in GameStop? That was a shit show. Okay. But besides the fact, because I don't want to get too much into that, because I don't want to take too much of everyone's time here, is now in terms of regulations or entering these markets, apps like Simple just make it extremely easy, and everyone's just going into it. Now, look, I know we talk about accessibility and overall accessibility being high, being considered a good thing. Do you think in this case, with something that's, I just think that, look, overall accessibility to things that are like, how do I describe this, right? Something like going to a bus stop, getting your transportation needs met is something much better to have accessibility on versus something so sensitive that it's basically a gamble, essentially, right? Do you think we should have this much accessibility in the markets? Because look, I know you can make the argument that, well, people will use their money accordingly and they'll use it up to their own discretion, but it's harming a lot of people at the same time. And as we keep mentioning, lives have been affected. right? People's livelihoods have been affected. So do you think that do you think regulations are the right thing to do in this case? Because now this makes us question our whole belief on having accessibility to every platform, to every service out there, right? And I think that's where I sort of wanted to mark the discussion, the end of the discussion. And I wanted to thank all of you guys for coming on this episode. Faris, thank you so much. Amal, thank you so much. You guys had a lot of key information that I know the audience will find very useful. And for the audience, if you guys have any comments or questions towards these amazing individuals, please ask them below. Send us a message. And yeah, Aaron, any final words, guys? Final words before we end this? We're good. Okay. Thank you so much for.
One thing.
Yes.
What we said on this platform today doesn't necessarily reflect our investment portfolios, but
Of course.
we don't want people on here to be harmed by this. So we're just saying this based on what we've noticed and what we've gathered over the past couple of years.
Exactly.
We don't want our stocks to go down because we said this.
We always try to take a holistic approach to our arguments, trying to look at every angle, every perspective, because we and obviously we're going to state our opinions as we should. So, but as we always say, do things to your own discretion and always have your own beliefs. This is just a discussion at the end of the day. So guys, thank you so much for being on the platform. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you on the next one.
See you on the next one.